In 2011, the Kiplinger family donated its priceless Washington collection to the Historical Society of Washington. 4,000 items that document the growth of Washington, D.C. from a sparsely populated federal enclave to a vibrant capital city. The collection began when journalist W.M. Kiplinger published the first Washington letter in 1923.
And the first function of these etchings and engravings and paintings and photographs was to have something to hang on the wall. Then, as my father once said, he read an article which called him a collector, and he thought that was a pretty good idea, so he became one. And that's the truth. It was an incremental, step-by-step process, and eventually it began to have some significance and historical focus.
The collection holds rare and valuable treasures, among them a 1752 map of the Maryland-Virginia area and an 1814 watercolor of the U.S. Capitol, burned by the British during the War of 1812. The collection also features images of the Civil War, when the city became a sprawling military camp and the center of war operations for the Union. Washington grew exponentially during this period, and every 2 years, a mayor was elected to govern the city's growing population.
I remember a number of photographs of early Washington mayors. They were not national figures. In fact, the names were not even familiar to me. But my favorite attribute was to look at their shoes, because Washington had a reputation back in the 1870s of not being very well paved. Its streets were muddy. And the picture of the mayors shows them in elegant costume, standing tall with frock coats. But their shoes were a mess.
Growing up in Washington, D.C., Austin Kiplinger was aware of what he called the city's split personality. First, a capital. And then, a city.
I saw my first inaugural parade from my father's office, a window on the second floor of the old Albee building on 15th Street. And the reason I could see it so clearly was that I could get onto the sign which advertised the Keith's Theater, and I could hang on that and lean right out over the street.
Many memories of places long gone live on in the Kiplinger collection.
When I was a boy, my father called me and said, how would you like to take an airplane flight? We went over to what was then Hoover Airport. It was a big flat area at the south end of the 14th Street Bridge. The location was where the Pentagon is now. So we took off from Hoover Airport and flew over the city and banked around over the Potomac and over all of the beautiful sights and the Capitol. And then we came back and we landed, and the pilot, he said, "You can unbuckle your seat belts now." Well, I said, "What's that?" I hadn't buckled anything.
From grandfather to father to son, The Kiplinger family has bonded to the city and the collection. Knight Kiplinger carries on the tradition, steeped in the stories of his family.
In the 1950s and 60s, W.M. Kiplinger, my grandfather, looked around the city of Washington and had a feeling that something big was about to happen. This city was about to change, and it was going to be changing very rapidly. So we began to commission painters and photographers to fan out around downtown Washington and capture these mundane city blocks. Before the wrecking ball came in.
Another significant change that came in the life of this city, of course, had been within the past 10 or 15 years, and that is the question of security. This was a very open city. When I was a young reporter here, my father and I would walk up to the White House and we would speak to the Secret Service guard whom we knew and say, "Hello, Bill," and he would say, "Hello, Kip." And we would say, "We want to go in and look around a little," and he would say, "Well, the boss isn't home, go on in." The reason we wanted the Historical Society to have this collection is that it's the open window to the public. We wanted it to be out where people could see it, where they could get a feel for this country and for the nation and for the capital city.
The Historical Society of Washington, D.C. is proud to preserve and display this valuable gift and to engage the general public in the Kiplinger collection.